gathered in our lounge rooms with our steaming cups of tea. And in our tens of thousands, we gathered at the quay. In places far and wide, we waited in shared expectancy, all listening for the message of defeat or victory.
The winner is Sydney.
4 words that travelled around the globe that chill September morn. 4 words cut loose to find their home and herald in a dawn. And as Australians celebrated around the world as one, I think that in our hearts we knew our special time had come, as chosen ones to take the Games to the new millennium.
The Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. Share the dream, share the spirit.
My great-grandfather, old man Bill Nargi, when I went and saw him after the Olympic Games, he couldn't understand the significance of an Olympic gold medal. And the only way I could describe an Olympic gold medal was to him was how he felt winning his land back.
We're heading into the 21st century, and my kids are still called niggers and coons at good Catholic schools too, I might add.
The Aboriginal community is very ill indeed, physical illnesses. And this country wants to go and enjoy the Games. Well, we'd like to be with them. But what can you do when you got that around you? People dying around the place because they happen to be Aboriginal people.
If there were a race between democratic nations to see who could best address the violation of human rights of the past, Australia would be coming stone motherless last.
Beyond the Sydney Opera House in the morning shadows of the Harbour Bridge, this Olympic pool is one of the symbols of Australia. I was 13 when I was selected to swim for my school here in what was called the Wonder Pool. An incredible 84 world records were set here, a distinction unmatched anywhere in the world. In Australia today, not much has changed. Many of us still like to see ourselves as a nation of sporting giant killers, taking on the world's best and beating them. So it was fitting that Sydney, a sporting paradise, should be given the Olympic Games in the millennium year 2000. However, those putting Sydney's case to the International Olympic Committee must have held their breath, then praised their luck. For when it came to the vote, no one mentioned those Australians excluded from paradise and who were, until recently, its invisible people. This film is about that other Australia. Sydney is preparing frantically for what are called the greatest ever Olympic Games. In a feast of public relations, the promoters describe the dawning of a golden age and a spirit to be shared by all Australians. These were the last Games held in Australia in Melbourne in 1956. Behind the show of national pride, Australia's secret truth was well hidden. There were no native Australians in the national team. The reason was not lack of talent. Aborigines were commonly regarded as less than human. They were not citizens. They had no vote. Unlike the sheep, they were not even counted. When I was at school, history books either ignored them or compared them to half-wild dogs, animals of prey who devoured their own species. While the Olympics presented a facade of triumph and civilization, Aboriginal families were being torn apart by deliberate government policies that led to a form of slavery. This remarkable photograph, taken shortly after the Melbourne Olympics, is of the Rovers football team. It vividly represents life and death in black Australia. All these young players were Aboriginal, and all of them are now dead. Most died in their 30s and 40s. Their tragedy represents the epic suffering of the Aboriginal people, whose living conditions are so bad that their life expectancy is among the lowest on Earth, worse than much of Africa.
You can't bet on the running, but there's a Dinka Mozzie leading. Perhaps it's only right that a really pioneer Australian should take the title. Yes, sir, my people have been Aussies from a long way back.
The Wally MacArthur story epitomises the apartheid of Australian sport. One of the stolen generation, he was taken from his mother as a small boy. Even his real name was forgotten. The missionaries named him after the MacArthur River. Yet he became one of Australia's greatest athletes, a world-beating sprinter, never recognised by the sporting establishment and forgotten today.
I went in the 100 yards, the 440 yards, and the long jump, you know, the broad jump. We call it broad jump in them days. And I found out later that I won the 3 out of 3. I was the only one in school history up till that time to win 3 out of 3. And I ran it, you know, like barefoot. And I seen in the paper the next day that it was the fastest 440 yards for a 14-year-old in the world.
As a junior athlete in 1951, Wally was left out of the Australian Championships despite his excellent times. When he complained, he was told he could compete if he paid his own fare. A friend paid it. Like so many other black Australians, he was never recognised as one of the best of his generation.
A lot of people started putting it into my head that it was prejudice, you know, like colour came into it, you know, because I was, you know, like half caste, I suppose, but they wouldn't admit that, you know.
Wally and I grew up in the boys' home together, and he would be the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life. And I used to go out and watch him train and watch him run, and he used to beat everybody. And the Aborigines weren't allowed to be in the state athletics teams in South Australia and in the other team. Victoria wouldn't accept him and South Australia wouldn't put him in. That's why he turned professional.
The professional body came up to me and they said, look, we'll look after you if you turn pro. And they did look after me real good before I went to England. The first 10 races I ran as a pro, I won 10 of them. One of them was against Frank Banner. He was the Australian professional sprint champion. They flew him from Sydney here to Adelaide. I ran against him on the, you know, one of the football ovals there, Norwood Oval. And he gave me 4 yards start. I beat him by 6. I ran away from him.
Denied an amateur career in his own country, Wally MacArthur came to England and made his name as a professional athlete and a brilliant rugby league player. Signed up by the Rochdale Hornets, his shared record of goals and tries stands today, and is still remembered as the fastest winger in rugby league.
When I arrived there, I mean, I wasn't looking for recognition or anything like that, but I got the paper next day, you know, like, and there's a photo on the front page, and it had the headlines, "Black Flash on way to England." And I thought, hey, gee whiz. I looked at my skin, you know, I said, I'm not that black, am I, surely? But anyway, that was in London, the London Times, and I got on the train and went up to Manchester. I got cameras were there waiting on it, and I got off the train, and photo on the front page of the Manchester, you know, news, and it had coffee-coloured boy from South Australia arrives in, you know, in Manchester. And I thought, gee whiz, I'm black in one paper and coffee-coloured in the other one, you know. When I was a professional in England, I won the Northern England 100 yards and 220 yards. And that same day, the Commonwealth or Empire Games were being held at Cardiff, you know, in Wales. And my time